to my loneliness. I guess that ignorance is bliss. Take me back to before the new. Rewind, take it out of cue. Innocence can be a young man's game. Signed up for the hall of shame. I wish I knew how much I miss not knowing.
Hello, hello, hello. I've been messing with the music, so I hope you can hear me well. Let me see if I can get somebody to check. Please can you check my mic is okay with music?
I like to be away in my patience. Stay up, I feel so outdated. How can we look the other way? Sun is out, the sky is gray. What would happen if I took a chance? It's always hard at first glance. I don't wanna, but I know I gotta do it. The truth is hard to swallow, I think I'll chew it.
Yeah, so I added music that's allowed for copyright, and I did something called ducking, which apparently makes your music drop when you talk. So I'm hoping it's working. Just asked a couple of people to check for me, so I need to see if they say they can't hear what I'm saying or if they can hear what I'm saying. And hopefully we're all okay. Okay, at least one person says it sounds good, so fingers crossed. It means I don't have to listen to dodgy copyright music myself, and so I've got Spotify playing for myself and dodgy copyright music for you guys. Anyway, so Bitcoin. It is ducking but raises very loud. My mic is too loud? Ah, okay. I'll turn it down a bit for this stream, and then maybe in the next stream I will like slow down. It's gone between songs now, I think, so it's not even playing right now. Yeah, I'll turn the volume down for now, and then I'll have a listen myself in the next stream and see. There is some method that you can make the volume go back to normal less quickly, so it's less aggressive apparently. Anyway, it's supposed to be a quick stream on Bitcoin. So obviously we had our significant drop. I'll show the bigger picture first, I think. So we had our big drop, and we haven't really hit anywhere that I like. So it's the short version. However, obviously we can start looking for longs if we think it's going to hold here, or because there's a chance it may hold here. There is a monthly level, but as we know, my preferred entry, starting to look for entries, and reiterate, starting to look for entries was slightly lower because that's where the better demand is. And then various entries that had my chat group crying yesterday, you know, all the way down to the possibility of going back and revisiting the lows. But in the short term, we're looking at this sort of messy 2-3 day area. And last I looked, and I'll have a check in a minute, there was still a lot of walls around 38,000, 38,500. So I would like to see this get a move up to some higher supply first, and even up there it's a little bit choppy. But at the moment we're struggling to get back into that upper range on the US dollar pair, and also on CME. Korea's kind of on the cusp of it, but because it's just a level there rather than a retest, it's not necessarily again a level that I would be overly concerned about the specifics of where we are with regard to the level. We did create 3-day supply. It was a 2-day previously, and we created a 3-day as of yesterday. I still would potentially like to see us run through that 3-day. It's going to be a bit dependent on where the low gets put in, you know, is this the low already or not, and then where the fibs are. But at the moment the 61 is like perfectly at the 8-hour supply inside the 3-day, but I still wouldn't mind seeing just to take some stops above but at this point it doesn't have to. You know, if this is a bigger drop, then it may not take stops. I'm leaving like my meme channel in for the moment, just because I like watching them, the same. Let me just check my silence my phone. What else? Okay, so on the local, so assuming this is the low, one of the things I was watching was the CME gap. So CME put in a gap on Tuesday evening, and then last night as well. What's interesting today is that CME has now gone into a $500 premium against the traditional exchange, or sorry, our normal exchanges, not traditional. So you can see now the price is at just approaching 40,000 on BitMEX, and is at, well, it's 40,320 on CME, which meant that as a result, that when we had the drop in Asia this morning, which retested where CME had closed, but CME didn't remotely close the gap because it had opened significantly higher at that point. So I don't know if that's relevant or not, but what it does mean is if we close the gap and we retain this premium, which is highly possible. The premium has been quite bullish recently, by the way. So what I have noticed is that when there's been a premium through a lot of the up move, and then as soon as the premium starts dropping off, that's when we've had the bigger corrections. So it's interesting, we've now got a premium again. But what it means is that if we test the close from last night, for example, that's 39,780 or thereabouts. Yeah, 39,780. Then it means that the US dollar pair is going to be 39,480. So it's going to be breaking that low, and then similarly for the lower one, the close is 39,200 on CME, but on this is going to be 38,900. So it could come down into this low level. What I was looking at yesterday for entries, I had Ether and Bitcoin. Just wanted to see the retests of the 4-hour zone on Bitcoin, down in the 61, 70, 78 fib area. That was my first. I want the comment I put. I'm conscious that I don't like where the low has been put in, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't look for a bounce or a possible long entry, even just for a short trade. Sorry, not a short, but a short-term trade in the meantime. So it has made the 4-hour demand down here. So I'm still leaving this for now. And again, at that point, this aligned with the CME gap. But now, given the CME gap's off, it's not quite necessarily as reliable as it was. And then we also had a 15-minute right at the bottom here that hasn't been tested, taking out some of those trend line stops. So if we're going to make a higher low, and it's possible we will even just for a bounce similar to how we did on Ether, then those two levels are still possibly valid. I don't really like how long it's taking up here, because the problem with that is if it doesn't come and test quick enough, like so the bounce yesterday held daily level there, not a level I would normally trade, and there was a 15-minute demand. Yeah, so it was too close for me to consider for a long. But at the same time, we did have Ether hit 30-minute demand in there, so Ether looks even weaker, but did get a decent bounce off that level. So it's similar here, you know, even if we do drop to here, I would like to hope we would get some sort of bounce, at least that's scalpable, and then you just assess what happens when we come into supply. Ether did then create 8-hour supply today. It managed to close just above and not created immediately last night, but then retested and then did close it, did confirm an 8-hour supply. I'll show you that. On the close of 8 AM this morning, actually, I had confirmed that, and it tapped up into it and then has dropped off that. So it has taken out the low of the previous candle, so arguably it's played out, but I'm still not overly confident of Ether, but I'll do a separate video on that anyway, so it's Bitcoin I more wanted to focus on. But so from a scalp perspective, these are two levels you could watch. What I don't love on this at the moment is that we had this 8-hour supply and we did come straight back up through it. but we didn't close significantly above it, we only wicked through it. So while we've come back from multiple tests now, and again, current, it is holding, but I would have liked to have seen a more significant move off this probably a little bit quicker. So at this point I probably think we are going to go deeper inside it, and I'm not particularly, and we also then made a 2-hour supply on top of that, so generally I'm not particularly confident of longs at the moment. I was watching this trend line briefly this morning, but it's just faked out above that before coming back down. So yeah, I still want some potential for long entries lower, even if they are in current range, and then in the bigger picture, potentially down here if we get it. So there's not much more I can add there. Like I say, just be aware when you're looking at the CME gaps of the premium that's now in, and just keep an eye on that if it grows. And so US dollar dominance, you know, obviously it's just similar in reverse. So we're up in this weekly supply, which is where I wanted to test before, and it's just sort of thinking about what it's doing really. So again, not something I particularly want to trade, although I would be shorting this if it was a tradable thing. It's also made a new 3-day, so again we've got all these chop of 4-day, 5 days, etc. in there, but hopefully it's going to give us more movement and I can go back to just doing 3 days. But it did have, so it sort of flipped a 5-day demand and then bounced off that, and then has also made this 4-day and a 3-day just above it. So there's 2 possible. So I'd like to see this hold either a test of 6% or 5.8%. If I was to be longing this, and then that would be aligning with where potentially to short Bitcoin. But again, the other thing to be conscious of here, so we're testing this, and this is the sort of the same messiness that we have in reverse on Bitcoin. So it can still push through this, and we can still get up to this 3-month level up here, which actually would be where, in a perfect world, I would look at this 3-month or somewhere inside here, even the upper 3-month, for looking for longs on Bitcoin and on the rest of the market. But that's again a bit of a bigger picture. I need to see this a bit more about what's going to happen in here. So lower time frames are not giving us very much the same as Bitcoin really. It has tested, so we have an 8-hour demand here that it's tested. Might create a new 8-hour, which I assume means then we're going to see the same on Bitcoin. So let me just have a quick look at that. So it's still 43 minutes, no we're not. So on career it looks like we possibly might create an 8-hour, and in fact CME has an 8-hour demand already, so that's interesting. So the fill of that first gap, and no, I'm talking about CME gaps, but they don't have to fill straight away. It's nice if they do, and it's nice to trade off them if it presents itself, but it certainly doesn't have to. Yeah, so that first gap fill would be 39.875. I think that does fill the gap. No, the gap's slightly below that. So yeah, if we were looking at 39.875 and 39.780, it's around the 39.800 mark for CME. Then we'd be looking at the 39.500 mark for Bitcoin, for the US dollar pair, which would be potentially just towards the bottom of this wick, just above the bottom of that wick. But yeah, like if we got there, I would prefer it to go a little bit deeper. Anyway, something to keep an eye on. There's nothing really of interest here. You know, I kind of like the ascending triangle type thing we're pulling, but I don't like the fact that we've just put in this 2-hour supply, because that's going to push us down more than likely. And then the reciprocal 2-hour demand that we've got on the US dollar dominance. Just run through a couple of the other things to see if there's anything of note. So grayscale, it's just a whole world of sideways as well today. So I guess, are we just seeing the accumulation coming in at these levels? So this has held the 3-day demand, which is solid for it. and we also have and also possibly the yearly level. So Grayscale didn't close quite with a yearly. So the green candle closed slightly under the red candle, but the price has gone up since then, and it could be flipping that yearly to a type of support in here. So it's just, yeah, tenterhooks at the moment as to whether we're going to hold in this zone for another up move. And if we don't, God knows where we'll bounce on this, quite frankly. There's a whole lot of, there's a weekly in there, but there's a whole lot of 2 days, 3 days mess. And potentially we could start looking all the way back down here in the previous annual level. And all 3 monthly demand down there. What else? Did notice longs had picked up a little bit yesterday, so that's kind of interesting. So it's Bitfinex longs, which aren't necessarily the most reliable indicator because they were going up from October 21 to June 2022 when everything else was going down, but when we did start selling off on that, it was more interesting timing wise. I'm being told by my group I need to have a proper mic, and yeah, they're right. I should have a proper mic. I don't, but I just talk at the computer, which is fine by me. Okay, so we've already looked at US dollar dominance, and the aggregated are going to be much the same. See if there's any updates I need to do on these charts while I'm here. Yeah, so the aggregated are basically the same with that sort of mess of 3-day, 5-day, 2-day demands and things. BUS dollar pair is slightly less aggressive than the others, interestingly. Total. So total has again. So in this case, it has reclaimed. Just need to update here again. It has reclaimed the low of the zone, but obviously the low of the zone on this chart is a little bit more messy than the one on Bitcoin, which is cleaner. So total, we created the same weekly supply. We came off it very cleanly. We've made a lower low, so the weekly supply is essentially played out. Had a bounce. I'm not sure why I've got that level there specifically, the orange level, but that's kind of what I'm saying is the bottom of the range. These change a little bit depending on what time frames you look at. That might be why it's, yeah, so the 12-hour it shows it just a little bit higher. So this has reclaimed the range, but again we want to see this test hold, and again I don't like where the low is, so what's making this challenging is the messy demand that we have below, and then for me anyway, the lack of clarity on where the bounce should be. This at least. Yeah, so I'd like to see it come up and start reholding this original 12-hour support that we had here, which it's not doing so far. So total isn't great, and again the low isn't anywhere clear. So I know total 2 and total 3 are sort of pretty much the same now. We're still in a weekly demand, and we've come off the daily at the bottom of that, but not showing much strength at the moment. So in the first bounce, then you're looking for the high low to be put in. So we're looking at if that's actually going to happen or not, or if we're just going to continue the fall. And in the case of total 2, total 3, they've all got quite a lot further to fall. And I've said this a few times, this is a little bit what I think on the old majors. I'm not that comfortable with where the lows are. Total 3 looking slightly better, but again we just need a bit more to confirm any sort of bounce in here. So while I don't think this is horrendous, it's not something I'm particularly bullish on at this point. Others similar to total 2 more than anything. But again, yeah, so there's just a lack of clarity in all these charts as to where we might bounce. but my preference obviously was, so my preference on all of them is that we have weekly demand just underneath the current zone, so others has that. We've had a few hits on the one we're already in, so that can still hold, but total 3 again has a weekly demand just underneath, and I think I've alerted the 3 months just in case we got the bigger drop. Total 2 the same, weekly demand underneath, and total doesn't have a weekly but has a 3-day, similar to Bitcoin. I don't know why I've still got that level in there. Yeah, so again, not much helping on this, but not much that's looking overly promising either. BTC dominance is coming up, but that's mainly because alts and everything else is dropping in because of Ether weakness. So Ether, I'll get onto and do a separate video on in a minute, but yeah, has come back significantly down off the resistance, and we need to see that and hit the weekly to see whether it's going to hold or not. Others' dominance is holding better, and I think DeFi the same. DeFi is holding a lot better, but again, all of these are monthly supply, so I don't necessarily expect them to continue to hold. So if we're getting any bounces on equities. So we've got BitO hitting a weekly demand, which is better. Coin could flip this level, but would like this a lot lower, so that doesn't really support longs. These tend to do similar to what Bitcoin does, so that's why I keep an eye on them. MicroStrategy I know is really close to this monthly zone, which I hadn't alerted. So that could be an interesting one to watch. Mara is also very close to 3 monthly zone. Riot has gone through the 3 monthly. Let me see, Mara I think is a stronger, so Mara made a higher high, so it's a stronger 3 monthly, but then also it's coming off 3 monthly supply. So when compared to Riot, made a lower high, so it's a less strong 3 monthly, and hence it's gone down into it. And Hut seems to have had 7% bounce, but yeah, Hut just got thrown off a cliff. So that's a mining, blockchain mining company, I think. Not sure if it's Bitcoin specific. BTC up. So I commented on this, and I think in my last update, that obviously these have come down a lot more heavily into that consolidation. The BTC up and Ether up. So Ether, well actually no, Ether's relatively similar. It's come deeper into there, but also in a 3 month has hit the 3 month demand. I don't think Ether's hit the 3 month demand though anyway. But yeah, so BTC up can be slightly exaggerated in the move, but has been actually, interestingly, isn't exaggerated in the upside, but is exaggerated in the downside. I don't know enough about the mechanics of it to know whether that's a thing or not. But again, this at least is in a place I would potentially look for a bounce on it. Potentially a move up to the weekly. So that looks better. But there's just, I mean, overall, there's just not enough confluence across the market for me to say, yeah, let's go all in Bitcoin on longs yet. So BTC down has made, again, that's that reciprocal 3-day demand that Bitcoin's made itself. Still in weekly supply. This is not a great weekly supply, but this I can see potentially pushing through the level a bit. Yeah, so sorry, I can't really give anything massively definitive at the moment, like this. I'm just waiting a bit more. So ETH up still coming down, and ETH down still going up and still has some space. So yeah, Ether particularly. And maybe I should just do that in this video rather than moving on to a separate one, because there's not much different in it. But yeah, so you can see on Ether down, it's got some space to get to supply, and ETH up is already dropping through fairly deeply through this weekly, and very probably is going down there at this point. So Ether, yeah, like I say, was looking uglier. So we had on Ether this weekly demand, which was where my original alert was, but it's obviously fallen a lot deeper into that, and certainly isn't seeing the kind of reaction you want. Again, stands the same as the last update. I was looking at historical price action over here, for example. So a load of my lines have reappeared down the bottom again. Great. Yeah, so we had a consolidation here, we pumped up through it, we dropped through it, we did have a couple of bounces and then ultimately dropped below that consolidation at that sort of mid top that we had in, where are we? September 2021. Let me get back on the log chart because that's why this is looking so weird. And then similarly at the high in 2019, slightly different, but again we still had this consolidation, broke out higher, looking aggressive, but then dropped straight through it. So both of these, that sort of like slightly dodgy inverse head and shoulders pattern, I can see playing out on this. And I might have to go back and look at those and see what kind of retests we got in the interim. Actually, I think I did look previously. I think one did give a retest back up to here, but the other just sort of ran straight through it with very small bounces like this. So at the moment, I'm not feeling overly confident of Ether particularly. Straighten up my chart. So we do have a 3-month zone down there. We've got alerted 3-month demand. Yeah, so we've got a 3-month demand significantly lower. Sorry, it's quite hard to see on this time frame. And I did also actually add in a new alert just for something to watch. Just on the possible. So we had this bounce that was on the 3-day level. And from a weekly perspective, so just take everything off so you can see. So we had this weekly demand made, and it closed just above, and then bounced from here. And then when the retest came, it didn't reach to the weekly. So I do think there's a possibility that we could get a swing fail of that low into the weekly, and then have another bounce from there. So that was just a level I wanted to keep an eye on. So put another. But I want this as a swing failure, so I would only trade this if it shows me a pattern of taking out that low, closing back above, etc, etc, breaking local structure. I mean, I only trade anything based on that really, but certainly, but that's just an interim level to look at. But if you're being wise, you should probably wait until we get down into this 3-month. And like I say, from the local entry perspective, I said a minute ago that so we had that test on the 30-minute there, and you know we've already fallen deeper inside that now, taking out the first 30-minute. And so this I was not overly confident it would hold regardless. And yeah, so I come out the bottom of the channel, meme channel that I had there. Hold on. I do have I think a meme upper channel. Anyway, just looks messy on this time frame. But this is still bearish right now. And even on this, so this didn't break. So we had an 8-hour, no, maybe a 4-hour supply. Yeah, so it had a 4-hour supply in here. And again, tried to flip it, tried again to make a higher high, but again has fallen deeper. And yeah, I generally just don't like how this is really struggling to get over the resistance, which is essentially the top of that candle. So it did get a couple of closes over there, but then when it retested the 4-hour, it hasn't really pushed at all. So we might see that come in, you never know, but at the moment it's not showing it. And given potentially I think Bitcoin can go lower, then Ether's going to break down if that happens. Final thing, I guess, on so ETH BTC. I think there was not much else to add on the CME or Korea on this. I mean, Korea is obviously a bit higher in demand, in the weekly demand. You know, this might suddenly pick up and just show us some move up, but on the lower time frames we don't have it yet. but I also can't say I'm short biased either. Like I'm a bit more short biased on Bitcoin, I guess, but unless you're scalping, like these are not levels to be looking for shorts. We need a better balance for that. ETH BTC is now coming back into areas of interest, and so 61 to 70 is down the bottom of this 4 hour and into the hourly below that on the linear scale, on the log scale, and this is the linear scale. It's not far off. So coming into the top now, so we have a 2-week level here, I believe. Yeah, so we've got a 2-week level at the current price, which is why we've got a little bounce off it so far, and then we've got this weekly a bit lower. So I still really would like this a bit lower, rightly or wrongly. The Swiss franc alert. Yeah, so I still like to see this push down a bit, and I'll just try and think about that quickly in the context of Ether and Bitcoin. So if Ether and BTC goes down, then either everything pumps and BTC pumps more than Ether, which is highly possible, or everything dumps and Ether dumps more than Bitcoin. So yeah, I mean, this is really aligning with ETH weakness over Bitcoin, no matter which direction we go in. Yeah, Ether is certainly not at a point for looking for longs, sure, but not for actually jumping into longs yet for me. And then to the upside, I think I've got a bit of a mess of alerts going on up here that I probably need to clean up. But again, like similar to Bitcoin, we have what's now a 3-day supply, I believe, which I just haven't updated yet, or is it no? It's still a 2-day. No, so we've just got 2-day supply up here, and then around the 61 fib, presuming this is the low, is where I've got alerted. So 2-day supply, and the arrow that I've got on the other chart, the sort of precise entry is a little bit higher because I wanted it to take out the wick. I think this wick above 25, and then it's a 4-hour and 8-hour supply above that. Yeah, I probably need to clean up those alerts a little bit. And then I also think there's another possibility. So I had this short entry that I gave to you guys for a re-entry up here, and yeah, it was very, very close, but still maybe $10 short of the level. So again, that's another possibility if we go back and swing fail that actually into the level properly, but that's far off. Cross that bridge if we come to it. For now, we continue to drop. And nothing makes me want to long this and hold this right now. Ether certainly not. Bitcoin slightly more so, but still not really. And certainly won't if it makes a new daily supply. So a daily supply on Bitcoin, and that's going to coincide with potentially a daily demand on the US dollar pair. So again, not the time to be longing alts and things like that either. It's quite nicely indecisive at the moment, isn't it? So yeah, don't mind that. I still don't really mind that area, that sort of 397, 398 for a bounce on CME, but I just don't like the gap below it. So yeah, let's just see what happens if we get into here, which looks like it's going to happen this afternoon more than likely. Let's see if we can hold that area, then I might become a lot more interested in longs. Anyway, that is about it. Let me just see if I've got any questions anywhere. Don't believe I have. And yeah, hope that's helpful, even though somewhat indecisive. I will do a stream shortly, I think, on the old majors at least. So EOS, Litecoin, Ripple, and BCH. Then the new majors, I think I'll need to do at least, it probably doesn't need a major update because really not an awful lot's changed on this, but my phone is now ringing. So anyway, I will end the stream there. Thank you.